This is sports, fairly obvious. You know, if you've got the ability to look at someone's skeleton, why not do a sports title? I mean, the interesting thing about this is how you get people to, you know, perform a sport when they're effectively standing in one spot. And you know what? It works, and it works really well. It's very, very exhausting, of course. You know, asking people to run and jump and, you know, is extremely exhausting. But I think that, you know, that's pretty good. Same with the fitness title. I look at the fitness title from Ubisoft, and I think, yeah, that's really wonderful. You know, it's a great. Oh, this is Dance Central, which is a dance title. Another great title, a great implementation. Actually, this was probably my favourite from E3, because I've played this and I actually did dance. Now, anyone that knows me knows that's an extremely rare occurrence. You could almost do it with this, but that's a smart approach. But here's the thing that I think is very interesting. A lot of these approaches, even the animals title, even the dance title, are very, very obvious. You know, if you look at Connects, you say, okay, we're going to track the human body, we'll do dancing, we'll do fitness, we'll do sports, we'll do some toys. But fascinatingly for me, Connect is so much more than that. Why? Because it really allows people to connect. That's why it's called Connect. So what we've done is that we have been thinking about this very interesting idea, which is, could we create something which feels alive? Now, I would love to give you a demo of this. I would adore to give you a demo of this, but there are many, many corporate blockers. The approval for a talk to talk about anything about Connect has to go right up the chain. I will be showing this in 2 weeks' time at a conference called TED, where I'm giving a talk about it. But let's just talk a little bit about it now. The thing about what we've done with the Milo project is we've created something which you can engage with. You can engage with it in a way when you're relaxed, when you're sitting down on a couch, and you're using your voice, you're using motions. We've had to go through and we've had to design every little tiny section of this game and meet some of the challenges. Let me just show you some things I can show, which are sadly work in progress, but this is the very, very early way of kind of navigating how we thought to navigate around the world. And interestingly, what we found with Connect is that if you can get the user to be very relaxed, think about their arm like you think about a mouse. So they can reach up, they can just connect with things in the world, then put their arm down. So if you look, this is Adam Language here, who's one of the hugely creative programmers that we've got. And just being able to move around the world, just being able to touch things in the world, very simply, very lightly. Now, very interestingly on this, it does mean that you can only do that for a certain amount of time before you have to allow the player to pause. Just to show you and remind you of some of the experience we have, this is one of the industry veterans we work with. This is Gary Carr, who's the head of the Milo studio. He's just demoing some of the Milo stuff we showed at E3 the year before last. This is the only stuff I'm allowed to show. But what essentially, while that is playing, what essentially Milo is what we're trying to do is engage a player in a new way of telling a story. Because I think there's a fascinating pot of gold here, where if you can create this sense of wonder to consumers, if we can create something which they really desire and want, and you create it in such a way that it just seems amazing and wonderful. And we saw glimpses of that in Black and White and in Populous and even in Theme Park. Then there is a massive opportunity here, a massive opportunity to give something that people haven't had before. And you've seen that in our industry at the moment. You know, Farmville and Zynga changed everything through that one experience. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve here, is just that sense of experience. So all this technology that we showed at E3 actually does work. talking to him works, and in fact, Ian is the only person, I think, in this room who's played this. It works, doesn't it, Ian?
Works, Peter.
There you go. I paid him. Honestly. So I think that's a fascinating opportunity, and it'd be easier for me to talk about this in the question time. So we're working on that. The biggest challenge, rather like the theme park challenge, the biggest challenge for us is convincing people what we're doing is actually going to work and is actually going to reach a new audience and is actually going to be an idea which people will love. And that, for me, is a massive challenge. I had it with every title. Populous, we went through 11 publishers before we got it signed. Theme park, they tried to close it down umpteen times. Black and White, the same. I had to fly all over the world to convince people it would work and the living creature would work. Milo is exactly the same. Convincing people that what you're doing can be something which changes the world. But that's what I think Lionhead and I should do, is take on those brave challenges. Let's now move on to Fable 3. Lionhead's also working on Fable 3, so most of our efforts about innovation around Connects are in the Milo project, and the idea is to start a new franchise, which I try to inspire you that that's a great idea. The other thing that we're working on is Fable 3. Now, Fable is part of that nuclear arms race of cord games, and I know not many of you are talking about cord games here, but what I think I've tried to do is try and get some of the stuff which everyone's excited about in this room, like social gaming and monetization. I'm trying to get it into the Fable franchise, and why not? So we've got a whole new raft of features in Fable 3. It's more like Fable 3.5 than it is Fable 2.5. We've got this idea of ruling, the idea that you start off as this revolutionary and you end up taking on this evil tyrant king. Halfway through the game, you end up ruling the Albion which you played in Fable 1 and Fable 2. I love that. I love that arc of story that's there. Why are we doing it that way? Why aren't we just doing another big baddie? We're doing it that way because I feel that, again, core gamers and even the slightly expanded audience that Fable has, about 40% of people who play Fable don't regard themselves as core gamers. Incidentally, we've probably got 30% of our people who played Fable 2 were women. Why? Because we actually built up the features to allow that. They love this idea of ruling. They like the idea of a different story. Touch, we have absolutely got in there for the less core audience. So you can reach out your hand and touch people and hug people and cuddle people. You can do that against people in the world. You can also do that against co-op players. That does include the cupping move, so you can groinally touch people if you so desire. Clearly that's going to sell at least another 100,000 in Europe, but probably going to cost 100,000 sales in America, because cupping isn't a term that's popular in America, as you can imagine. A lot more attention to customization, a huge world, fantastic co-op, and a great cast. We've got a great cast because we have to tell a story in a way that is, and to a quality level which is just terrifying nowadays. What's happening in Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, shows you the amount of drama that you need in a game. So we have got people like John Cleese, Simon Pegg, Sir Ben Kingsley, Stephen Fry, all of which are playing major characters in the game. And we're embracing the change that's showing in the industry. So it's a lot more social. There's a lot more innovation around sociability. You can invite someone into your world and co-op with them, whether you're sitting on the couch with them or across live. You can marry your co-op partner. You can have sex with your co-op partner. You can have children with your co-op partner. And if you have got a girlfriend who you want to get into playing computer games, then this is a good way of placating them. and perhaps having sex as well, I don't know. So there's a lot of change in there, but one of the things that I want to talk very briefly about is this idea that we're changing Fable from being an RPG game into an action-adventure game. We're losing more of the complexity of RPGs, and we're embracing the accessibility of action-adventure games. Now, why is this? The reason for this is this chart here. RPGs is a tiny segment. Action-adventure, you put it together, is a much bigger segment. And why shouldn't games change genres? I think that's a very key thing for us creative people is, you shouldn't just think, oh, we are an RPG game, this is it. As far as our gamers are the people who play our games are concerned, we shouldn't worry about this. So we have to move it from one genre to another, not least of which is that more than 60%, there's this frightening statistic with Fable 2, more than 60% of the people that play Fable 2 actually understood and used less than 50% of its features. And that's just completely not right. So Fable 3 is far more about accessibility, and we're going to have a brief video to show it. We are driving to sell more than 5 million units, and to make a profit in excess of $150 million. The reason for that, we have to do that because if a franchise doesn't reach that level, then it will inevitably wither in today's world. And that's why we're putting so much quality into it. But there are two new things that we should talk about, because I think for this audience, I think it's a fascinating point. Why shouldn't we embrace some of the things that are happening in the industry? So for Fable 3, we are releasing soon after the retail launch out on the 26th of October, we're releasing episodic. The idea is that we sell it at retail on a DVD as usual, but we also online break it down into chapters. We give away the first chapter entirely free, absolutely free. So the first hour of the game is completely free. You then, when you reach this a certain point in the game, it then comes up and says, thank you for playing the free part of Fable or the pilot of Fable 3. Do you want to spend an extra $2 or $5, whatever the price is, buy the next episode, or do you want to buy the whole lot? Click yes, and you immediately continue playing. I love that idea. I love the idea that this is giving away the free content and then asking people to spend the additional money just when there's a cliffhanger, just when we say what happens next. I think that's a really, really good idea. Interestingly, 9 months after Fable 2 came out, we trialed this purely to see if we can get the technology working on Fable 2. We expected, Fable 2 had been out for some time and it sold just over 3 million units. We didn't expect really much in the way of interest because we thought we'd get everyone. Interestingly, Fable 2, the first episode of Fable 2 was downloaded 1.6 million times, and the episodic version has gone on to make another about $15 million in contribution margin. So that was on a title which was already released for 9 months. I think it's going to be fascinating what happens with Fable 3. And it kind of supports this freemium idea, putting stuff in the game. But that's not what we're also doing. Oh, one other thing that it does do, which is fascinating, is it gets around this horrible concept of demos. Now, this is demos. Anybody out there that thinks that demos, whatever demo it is a good idea is crazy. They're never a good idea. It really is never going to work. The reason for that is very, very simple, is because one is demos are usually done at the end of a game and they require an enormous amount of design talent to make a great demo. The other reason is that you're more likely to satisfy the curiosity of your user rather than to entice them more. So I think it's far better to say, break it down into episodes, give the first episode free. That acts as your demo. It means that that cliffhanger is there. So many games I've played as demo, so I just haven't gone on to play anything else. The other thing that we're doing, the other thing that we're embracing is this idea of, idea of the freemium content. Also, this works in the free downloadable demo version, but it also works in the full retail version. There are shops in the Fable world which are connected to the cloud. We use the now standard A/B testing techniques to populate those shops. So some people's shops will be full of swords at a certain price. Other people's shops will be full of dyes and hats and clothes. We do that because we gather data. I, as a designer, can walk into the office at any time, press a button, I can see who's playing, how they're playing Fable 3, what they're actually doing, what stage of the story is, and I can populate their shots individually. That means we're delivering what's a player downloadable content, and we can deliver it almost on an hourly basis. I can say, let's give the French a whole load of underpants, let's give the English a whole load of swords. And so that allows us to continue to deliver content, which I think is incredibly interesting how that goes. The other thing that it allows us to do, we don't only think of that content as being items that you use in the world, we can deliver whole entire episodes. We're using that kind of technique. There is an example in Fable 3. There is a ferry that goes out from a dock, and you just see this ferry going, and you walk up to the dockkeeper, and he'll say, to get on the ferry, you need to buy a ticket. We will release that ticket to some people or all the people in the online shop as you're playing the game, which I think is a fascinating thing. That ferry takes you to an entirely separate island, to an entirely separate level, and an entirely separate segment of the gameplay. So this is us actually using some of these freemium ideas, the social ideas, the ideas that users pay for things as they're playing in a core game. And I think that is a really smart idea. Let's just take a very quick look at where we stand in Fable. This is just a very rough and ready video that we're showing. I normally choose to do this via a demo. Let's just turn the sound down a little bit. So we've got the dog back again. The world is now truly vast. Each of the levels we've got are around about 4 times the size of the original. We've got all of the interactions and expressions that we had in Fable 2, plus an awful lot more. So this is a little place called Brightwall. That shop that you see on the left, you can just see on the left, is an online shop. So we can populate that as we like it. As far as the user is concerned, it doesn't seem like an online shop. You go in there, you might get stuff for in-world gold. You might have to pay additional gold for it, which I think is really cool. We've got these whole load of new ways of interacting with people, whether they're real people or whether they're virtual people. So you can, kiss people, you can dance with people, you can, interact in unique ways. You can literally chat people up. This woman's a little bit drunk. You can get married to people. The reason we're doing this is really trying to bring a wider audience in to the Fable franchise, because my suspicion is there's a lot of people who are partners of core gamers who kind of want to play as well. So for them, actually getting married is probably a big thing. Even for us boys, we probably want to avoid that like the plague. But actually getting married is a really big thing. Now we're fast running out of time. So I may leave this video on because it goes on a little bit while we have questions, but I just want to go to the conclusions. So the conclusion is, for me as a creative person, we should embrace the change that's happening. We should try and see these bubbles as they're happening, see where the pots of gold are, and pull them into the franchises that we've got. Why shouldn't core games be embracing this, what's happening in the social side? Why shouldn't the social side be embrace what's happening in the core game side? I can assure you it won't be long before we have the big licenses happening in the social space. And that's going to be tough for everybody. So because this gold rush is going to get very, very expensive. Actually the same with mobile as well. Innovation is always a hard sell, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. So let's just open it up for questions in the last 10 minutes.